The year is 2009, and somewhere in the dense forests of northern Germany, a routine NATO training exercise is about to become something else entirely. Something that decades later, the men who lived through it still refuse to discuss openly. What happened out there during those 3 nights in October wasn't supposed to exist. It wasn't supposed to be possible. But it was real, and it knew their names. Before we go any further, I need you to understand something. This isn't folklore. This isn't some campfire story handed down through generations. This is recent. This happened to trained soldiers equipped with night vision, thermal imaging, and every technological advantage modern militaries possess. And none of it helped. None of it explained what they encountered in those woods. If you're new here, welcome to the channel where we explore the darkest corners of military history. The things that don't make it into official reports, the experiences that get buried in classified files or dismissed as stress-induced hallucinations. Hit that subscribe button now, because what I'm about to share with you comes from multiple sources, multiple witnesses, and it paints a picture that's as consistent as it is absolutely terrifying. And if you make it to the end of this video, I want you to leave a comment telling me whether you think these soldiers encountered something supernatural, or if there's a rational explanation we're all missing. The operation was called Crimson Forest, though that name appears nowhere in official NATO records now. It was supposedly a standard training exercise, joint operations between American and German forces, testing communications protocols and night patrol coordination in forested terrain. 12 men, split into 3 teams of 4, scattered across approximately 40 square kilometers of ancient woodland in what used to be East Germany. The area had history. During World War II, it had been the site of a prisoner of war camp. Before that, medieval records mentioned it as a place locals avoided after sunset, though no one remembers why anymore. The soldiers weren't told any of this, of course. They were given coordinates, mission parameters, and a timeline. They were professionals, rangers, most of them, men who'd done tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, men who'd seen combat, men who, theoretically, weren't easily rattled. The first night was quiet, almost too quiet, several of them would later say. The forest was dense, old-growth trees that blocked out most of the moonlight even on clear nights. By 2300 hours, all 3 teams had established their patrol routes and were conducting systematic sweeps of their assigned sectors. Radio communications were clear, everything was proceeding as planned. And then, at approximately 01:47 hours, Team 2 went silent. Not radio silent in the tactical sense, actually silent. They stopped responding to check-ins. Their last transmission had been routine, nothing unusual, just confirmation of their position. Then nothing. For 11 minutes, nothing. The team leader of Team 1, a sergeant we'll call Martinez, tried raising them repeatedly. Protocol said wait 15 minutes before reporting a communications failure, but something felt wrong. Martinez would later tell investigators that he couldn't explain it, but he knew something was wrong before the 15 minutes elapsed. At 01:58, Team 2's radio operator, Specialist Davis, came back on the net. His voice was different. That's how Martinez described it. Different, not panicked, not scared, different. Controlled, but with something underneath it, something Martinez couldn't identify. Davis reported that they'd heard something moving parallel to their position, approximately 50 meters to their east. They'd stopped to observe, gone into a security halt, and that's when they'd heard it clearly. Someone was out there, someone walking through the forest, moving through the undergrowth, but not trying to be quiet, making noise deliberately, it seemed. Breaking branches, rustling through leaves, moving steadily south. German forces maybe, someone else running a training exercise in the same area. It happened sometimes, coordination failures. But Davis said something else. Something that made Martinez's skin crawl even through the static of the radio transmission. He said it sounded like it was limping, one leg dragging. A shuffle step rhythm, slow, consistent, not hurrying, not hiding. Team 1 was approximately 2 clicks north of Team 2's position. Team 3 was even farther south. Martinez made the call to hold position and monitor. Whatever Team 2 was hearing, they were equipped to handle it. Night vision, weapons, training, they'd be fine. Except Davis came back on the radio 3 minutes later, and this time Martinez could hear it in his voice. Fear, real fear, the kind that combat veterans don't usually show. The thing in the woods had stopped moving. Team 2 had frozen, trying to pinpoint its location, trying to identify it. And then, from somewhere in the darkness ahead of them, they heard breathing, heavy, wet breathing, like someone with a chest cold, struggling to draw air. But loud, too loud, carrying through the forest like it was right next to them, even though Davis insisted it had to be at least 30, 40 feet away. And then it spoke. Not words exactly, not at first. It made sounds, human sounds, but wrong. Like someone trying to remember how to form words, how to use a voice box, how to speak, garbled, distorted, and then, clear as anything, cutting through the static of the radio transmission that Martinez was monitoring, he heard it himself through Davis's open mic. A name, someone calling a name. Davis. It said Davis, or something very close to Davis. Drawn out, the syllables stretched and wrong, but recognizable. And Davis, Specialist Marcus Davis from Fort Benning, Georgia, who'd served 2 tours in Iraq and had once told Martinez he didn't believe in ghosts or demons or anything he couldn't put bullets into, Davis completely lost his composure. The radio transmission became chaos. Multiple voices, someone shouting orders, the sound of men moving fast through brush, branches snapping, and underneath it all, that voice, calling names, Davis, Anderson, something that might have been Miller, though the pronunciation was so distorted, it was hard to tell. Martinez ordered his team to move toward Team 2's last known position. Double time, weapons ready. Whatever was happening, they were going to end it. 2 clicks through dense forest at night is no joke, even with nods, night observation devices. It took them almost 18 minutes of hard movement before they got close enough to see lights through the trees. Team 2 had activated their IR strobes, infrared markers visible through night vision, clustering together in a defensive position. When Martinez's team reached them, they found all 4 men standing in a tight circle, rifles out, covering every direction. But they weren't moving, they weren't speaking, they were just standing there, watching the tree line. Davis's face, even in the green glow of night vision, was wrong. Martinez said he looked like he'd aged 10 years. Pale, drawn, eyes too wide. The others weren't much better. "What happened?" Martinez demanded. "What did you see?" "Nothing," Davis told him. "We didn't see anything. But it was there. It was right there, 10 feet away, maybe less. We could hear it breathing. We could hear it moving. And it said our names. It knew our names." Anderson, one of the other soldiers in Team 2, was shaking. Actually shaking, his weapon rattling slightly against his kit. He said it had circled them. They'd tried to track it with their weapons, sweeping their muzzles through the darkness, but there was nothing there. Not on night vision, not on thermal, nothing. But they could hear it, all of them. Moving around them in the brush, that wet breathing, that shuffle step walk. And the voices, it kept calling their names, not shouting, not whispering, just saying them. Flat affect, emotionless, but clearly directed at them. Like it was testing the words, like it was learning. Martinez made the decision to consolidate. Both teams moved together to a clearing, about 300 meters west, somewhere they could establish a real defensive perimeter, somewhere with sight lines. They radioed Team 3 and ordered them to join up as well. Training exercise was over. Whatever this was, they were going to deal with it together, and then they were going to get the hell out of these woods. By 03:30 hours, all 12 men were together in the clearing. They'd set up a patrol base, 360 security, everyone facing outward. The senior NCO present, a staff sergeant we'll call Richardson, tried to raise their command post, get higher clearance to abort the exercise, but the radio wasn't working. Not completely dead, just garbled, static and interference that shouldn't have been there given the equipment they were using. They'd wait until dawn, Richardson decided. 6 hours. They could hold a position for 6 hours. And then they'd move out, march to the extraction point and report whatever the hell this was to someone with more rank and better answers. But the thing in the woods had other plans. At 0412 hours, they heard it again, all of them this time. No doubt, no confusion. Something was moving through the forest just beyond the tree line, that same shuffle-step rhythm, dragging one leg, slow and steady, moving around the perimeter of their position, not approaching, not fleeing, just circling, like a predator assessing prey. And then the voices started, not just calling their names now, mimicking them. That's what Richardson would later tell investigators. It was mimicking their voices. He heard his own voice coming from the darkness, repeating things he'd said hours earlier during the patrol brief. Martinez heard himself giving orders. Davis heard himself laughing, a joke he'd made at dinner before they'd headed out. But the voices were wrong. The pitch was off, the cadence distorted, like a recording played back at the wrong speed or filtered through water, human, but not, familiar, but corrupted. One of the younger soldiers, a private named Collins, started crying, openly weeping, his rifle hanging loose in his hands. He kept saying it wasn't real, it couldn't be real, they needed to leave, they needed to run. Richardson grabbed him, shook him, told him to get his shit together. They were United States Army Rangers. They didn't run from shadows and sounds. They didn't break, except Collins kept crying and Anderson started praying quietly, and even Martinez, who'd seen terrible things in Fallujah, who'd pulled bodies from rubble and walked through streets where the dead were stacked like cordwood, even Martinez felt something he hadn't felt in years, true, deep, primal fear. Because the thing in the woods was getting closer, they could all tell. The breathing was louder. The footsteps, that shuffle-step drag, was nearer. It was still circling, but each circuit brought it a few feet closer to the clearing. And then, at 0441, it stepped into view. Except they still couldn't see it. Every man there was looking at the same section of tree line. Every man reported seeing movement, seeing something push through the brush at the edge of the clearing, but when they looked at it directly, there was nothing. Peripheral vision caught something, a shape, a silhouette, dark against dark, tall, too tall, hunched, moving with that dragging, limping gait. But direct observation revealed only empty forest. Thermal imaging showed nothing. Night vision showed nothing. The naked eye showed nothing. But every single one of them knew it was there, knew it was standing at the edge of the clearing, 15 feet away, watching them. Richardson gave the order to fire. 12 rifles opened up simultaneously. Automatic fire, controlled bursts sweeping the tree line. Tracer rounds cutting through the darkness, muzzle flash lighting up the clearing like a strobe. They poured hundreds of rounds into that section of forest, shredding vegetation, splintering trees, and they hit nothing. When they ceased fire, when the echoes died away and the smoke cleared, there was damage everywhere. Trees torn apart, branches shattered, the earth chewed up by bullets. But no blood, no body. No indication they'd hit anything at all. And in the sudden silence after the gunfire, they heard it again, behind them now, on the opposite side of the clearing. That breathing, that shuffle-step walk, it had moved. Somehow, during the chaos of the shooting, it had circled around behind them. Or maybe it had been in two places at once. Or maybe there was more than one of them. Martinez was screaming into the radio now, breaking protocol, breaking procedure, just screaming for anyone to respond, to send extraction, to get them out. But the radio was completely dead. Just white noise, no transmission, no reception. The thing circled them for the next 3 hours, sometimes close, sometimes distant. Sometimes it called their names in their own voices. Sometimes it made other sounds, wet sounds, tearing sounds, sounds that might have been words in a language none of them recognized. It never entered the clearing fully. It never attacked. It just watched and circled and spoke. By the time dawn came, by the time the first grey light started filtering through the canopy, all 12 men were barely holding it together. Collins had stopped responding to direct orders. Anderson was still praying, his voice hoarse and barely audible. Davis was just staring into the trees, his weapon hanging loose. And as the sun rose, as proper daylight finally penetrated the forest, the sounds stopped. The presence, that oppressive feeling of being watched, being hunted, simply vanished. Like someone had flipped a switch. They waited another 30 minutes before Richardson gave the order to move out. They left most of their gear behind. They just grabbed weapons and water and moved fast as they could toward the extraction point. When they finally reached it, when they finally stumbled out of the forest into the clearing where German liaison officers were waiting with vehicles, they looked like men who'd survived a war. Haggard, exhausted, eyes hollow. The debrief was immediate and classified. Each man was interviewed separately, their stories matched. Too well, the investigators noted. Too consistent, which in some ways made it less believable. Like they'd coordinated their statements. But they hadn't. They'd been separated immediately upon extraction. No chance to confer, to align their stories. And yet every single one of them described the same thing, the same sequence of events, the same sounds, the same voices, the same inexplicable presence. The area where they'd been training was immediately closed. Officially, unexploded ordnance was discovered, making it unsafe for further exercises. The operation was scrubbed from records. The men were instructed to sign non-disclosure agreements. Some refused initially, were threatened with administrative action, signed anyway. Years later, some of them have started talking. Quietly, anonymously, but talking. They found each other through veteran networks, through forums dedicated to unexplained military experiences, and what they've discovered is that they weren't the first. Records going back decades mention similar incidents in those same woods. Different units, different nations, same phenomena, something in that forest that comes out at night, something that watches, something that learns, something that speaks. Local Germans in the nearby villages, the ones whose families have lived there for generations, they know stories. They don't share them with outsiders usually, but they know. They say the forest is old, older than the wars, older than the camps, older than the countries that have fought over this land. They say things happened there centuries ago, bad things, things that left marks, left scars in the earth itself. And whatever walks there now, they say it's been walking for a very long time, watching soldiers march through, generation after generation, learning their languages, their voices, collecting their names. Martinez doesn't sleep well anymore. He left the army in 2011, works construction now in Arizona. But he still hears it sometimes, in that space between waking and sleep. His own voice calling his own name from somewhere far away and long ago. Davis moved to Alaska, as far from forests as he could reasonably get while still staying in America. He says the distance helps, but not enough, not nearly enough. Collins never recovered. He's in and out of VA facilities diagnosed with severe PTSD, though he's never been in combat. How do you treat someone for trauma when the traumatic event isn't supposed to exist? How do you heal someone haunted by something that officially never happened? The thing is still out there. The forest is still closed to military exercises, but hikers go through sometimes. Locals avoid it after dark, but tourists don't know any better, and every few years, someone reports something. Sounds in the darkness, voices calling names, a presence they can't see but know is there. The German government doesn't comment. NATO doesn't acknowledge. The story remains buried, classified, dismissed. But the men who were there, they know. And they'll tell you, if you ask them in the right way, in private, when they've had enough to drink to loosen their tongues, but not enough to cloud their memories, they'll tell you it was real. They'll tell you they've never been so certain of anything in their lives. Something is in those woods, something that has been there for a very, very long time. Something that sees soldiers as toys, as curiosities, as sources of new sounds to mimic and new names to learn. And it's patient. It's so patient because soldiers will always come, wars will always be fought, exercises will always bring new men into the forest, and it will be waiting in the darkness between the trees, breathing, watching, learning their names. If this story disturbed you, if it made you think twice about what might be lurking in forests you've walked through, in training areas you've patrolled, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Tell me if you've had similar experiences. Tell me if you think there's a rational explanation for what these men encountered. And if you're military or former military, if you've seen things you can't explain, things that didn't make it into official reports, share your story. You're not alone. Hit that like button if this episode got under your skin. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, because we're diving deeper into military mysteries that official channels won't touch. Stories that matter, stories that deserve to be told, even if they're terrifying. Especially if they're terrifying. The truth is out there, somewhere between the official records and the whispered stories veterans share when they think no one else is listening. And we're going to find it. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And if you're ever in a forest at night and you hear something calling your name in your own voice, maybe don't answer, maybe just run.